to another tarot reading. The collective reading that we are going to do today is for this Venus in Aquarius. So Venus just moved into Aquarius in, when was it? On the 6th of March, and Venus will remain in Aquarius until the 5th of April. So during this time when we have Venus transiting through Aquarius, Venus is all about love and relationships. So when it's going through a sign, we are learning to love those aspects of ourselves, love those aspects of others, and love that energy. We are learning to relate to that energy as well. So right now we have Aquarius energy going on because that's where Venus is moving through. So we're learning to love and relate to all things to do with Aquarius. So this is a good time to really, when Venus is in a sign, it's a good time to really kind of connect with the energies. I always find that if you have issues with connecting to certain energies, whenever Venus moves through a sign, it's a good time to work on connections with those energies. So, and learning how to relate with those energies. So I hear a lot of people who are like, you know, I can't relate to Gemini energy, or I can't relate to Cancer energy, or I can't relate, I have issues relating. So when Venus moves through those particular signs, that's a good time for you to work on learning how to connect with those and learning how to love those. And we also have all 12 signs in our personality as well, right? So there is a part of us that is ruled by Aquarius. And, you know, if you have troubles with connecting with Aquarius energies, you might also have troubles connecting with that part of yourself as well. So this is a good time to not only in relationship to others, to learn how to connect with others on that level, but it's also a good time to learn how to connect with ourselves. So, yeah, we're going to jump into this. Let me pull up. So what we're going to look at specifically in this reading, we're going to look at ways that we can connect with others on an intellectual level. We're going to look at ways we can authentically express our needs and wants. How we can be more open-minded when it comes to money and love. We are going to look at how we can create healthy detachments in our relationships, and how we can love unconditionally without any type of barriers. Okay? So, let's start off with ways to connect with others on an intellectual level. My nose ring's bugging me. So how can we connect with others? What are some ways, what is the best way to connect with others on an intellectual level? Okay, so we have the Page of Swords is coming up, okay? So when it comes to connecting with other people on an intellectual level, the best way to do this, and the best way to learn how to do this while Venus is in retrograde, or Venus is in Aquarius, is to actually connect. I get a lot of Gemini energy with this card when it came out, so this is all about communication, talking to people. We actually have to get out there and socialize. We actually have to talk to other people, and not just talk, but listen. Okay, this is about being open and receptive. So the pages are those open, the Page of Swords specifically is a very open-minded person, okay? They love to talk to other people. They love to communicate with other people. They love to learn, they love to study, they love to research. But when it comes to connecting with others, the way that we're going to do that, and the best way we can do that right now, is through talking to others and listening, like actively listening. So you want to try and avoid talking at people and shoving your opinions and thoughts and ideas at people. and you really want to focus more on being open-minded and listening to what others have to say, and really trying to see things from other people's perspectives and paying attention to their stories, because everyone has, I feel like we all have our own experiences, right? We've all been through different things in our lives, and we all have our own stories to tell. And sometimes we have hard times connecting with other people because we don't understand their stories, or we don't understand where exactly they're coming from. So this is a good chance to really listen to people's stories in order to better connect to other people, and to not only better connect to them, but better understand them as well. The bottom of the deck, we have the Ace of Pentacles. So again, understanding people, like where they come from. Sorry, my nose ring is driving me up the wall. So understanding where people are coming from, right? We all stem from somewhere. We all, like I said, we all come from somewhere. We all have different experiences and journeys within our lives. And to really understand people and connect with them, you have to understand their roots. We have to understand where they're coming from. So let's get into the second part of this and look at some ways that we can authentically express our needs and wants. So what are some ways that we can authentically express our own needs and wants? Okay. Let's see what we have coming up. So we have a few ways. So we have the Temperance card coming up. We have the Two of Cups reversed coming up. And we have the Ten of Swords reversed coming up as well. So I feel like the one... So I feel like the first thing is we have to be very, very clear in what our needs and wants are. So one thing that a lot of people do is they try to compromise sometimes. And I think compromise is a big way that we can authentically express what we need and want and desire, in terms of finding a healthy medium when it comes to what other people want versus what we want. But what was coming through with this card too is that we focus so much on what other people want, and a lot of times we unhealthily compromise our own needs and wants, and we start taking on and integrating the needs and wants of other people. Okay, so Temperance, I feel like a lot of this has to do with integration, with pulling things in and mixing things together and blending things. This tends to be the alchemy card in a lot of ways too. You can see the cups going back and forth and things getting blended together. I feel like we need to avoid necessarily blending our own wants and desires with other people in terms of the extreme of that. Because sometimes when we try and over-compromise, and we again lose our ability to authentically express what we need and want, because it becomes all about the others. Okay, with the Two of Cups coming up reversed, we really kind of need to focus on ourselves. We need to be, especially with the Ten of Swords as well, reversed, we need to be very clear and concise about what exactly our needs are. Okay? Now, like I said, there might be a need for compromise in a lot of ways where we're taking into consideration other people's needs, but do not forfeit your own needs, wants, and desires for the desires of other people, okay? Compromising is finding a middle ground. Compromising is finding a way where you can get what you want and need, the other person can get what they want and need, and you both can be happy. Both parties, or all parties, even if this goes beyond two people, all parties can be can get what they want and need to a certain extent and be happy, right? This is a healthy way of being able to work with others and still being able to express. But like I said, be careful of compromising so much so that you lose, and you end up giving in to the other person, okay? So we need to be very, very clear about what it is we want and need and desire. Then we also need to be able to listen to other people and hear what they want and need and desire, and find ways to work together. I keep hearing compassion in a compassionate way so that everybody's needs and desires can be met. I feel like there is too much division, especially with this Two of Cups coming up. There is way too much division in amongst people. People right now are very much, I want what I want, and regardless of what the other person wants, the focus is what we want as individuals. And we're becoming a little too selfish in a lot of ways. And we need to learn how to cooperate and work together on a level where, again, we're not over-compromising or we're not being too selfish. There's that middle ground. But also in expressing, being clear with what you want, and being clear with what you want and stating what you want and what you need very concisely. You can also, then people know exactly what it is you want and you need, and it's easier to find people who are compatible with you, who want and desire the same things as you. It's like going out on a date with somebody, right? When we're going through that dating process and we're getting to know somebody, we want to express what it is we want out of a relationship first, because you don't want to be, spending months and even years developing a relationship only to come and find out that you guys want two totally different things, okay? And that you aren't compatible, you don't mix and blend well, right? So when we can authentically state in a way that's compassionate, like not selfish, not, I want my way or that's it, when we're stating what we need, but we're also open to compromise things, we can find a middle ground with things and we can find ways to blend together. But I feel like a lot of people, sometimes we get too absorbed in what we need or what other people need that we forget our own needs, wants, and desires, right? Or we forget the other person's needs, wants, and desires, and it makes it very hard to compromise and find a way to blend together. And like I said too, if you aren't compatible, right, it just makes it easier to agree to just kind of go your separate ways, and you're not wasting time and trying to make anybody into something that they're not, essentially. It makes it easier to make that judgment call as well. So we have Judgment under the bottom of the deck for this, so it does make it a lot easier to make a judgment call and say, well, this person's good for my life, this person's not good for my life, this is somebody I'm going to connect well with, or this is somebody who I'm not going to connect well with, and then move on. Okay, so we're going to look at how we can be more open-minded when it comes to money and love. How can the collective be more open-minded when it comes to money and love? Oh, okay. Let me clarify that. So we need to work through blocks, okay? When it comes to money and love, a lot of times they're saying that we need to really look at our beliefs. So we have the Hierophant coming up, and this is our beliefs and our values. It's Taurus energy. And then for clarifiers, we had the Six of Swords coming up reversed, the World card coming up reversed, the Wheel of Fortune card coming up reversed, and the Five of Wands coming up reversed. So I feel like we essentially need to look at ourselves. We need to look at, we can be more open-minded by really learning to understand our own beliefs and our own, how am I going to word this? By looking at our own skeletons, okay? That's the best way I can word this. If we are being closed-minded to something, it is usually because we believe that we're right, or we believe there's some sort of belief system that is underneath of that, right? Or we feel that, you know, a good example of this comes up in a lot of religions, where a lot of religions are like, my religion is the one true religion. I don't know how many times I've heard that throughout my lifetime. You know, in the various religions I have studied, there has been, all of them have believed they're the true religion, which I find interesting in a lot of ways, right? It is our beliefs. So if we believe that we deserve certain things when it comes to money and love, or if we believe that money and love should have certain expectations, or we believe we're not worthy of money or love, right? These things can be blocks, and they can keep us stuck. They can close us off, mentally speaking, to things, okay? So we really need to, in order to be more open-minded, we have to be willing to look at the skeletons in our closet. We have to be willing to look at what is keeping us stuck, what is blocking us from seeing different things. We have to be willing to also get outside the programming, so to speak, that we have in order to see things from a different perspective, right? We have Venus and Uranus, which is what this reading is all about, and it is about, you know, Uranian, or Venus in Aquarius, or Uranus rules Aquarius. Aquarian energy is all about seeing things differently, right? It is also about freedom and breaking free from things. When we're limited by our beliefs and what we believe, right, we have to get rid of those beliefs. In order to open our minds up, we have to see outside of the box. They keep showing me a box with the lid. It's funny because as I was saying that, I was seeing like a box with the lid closed, and is very dark. And inside that box, like if you imagine yourself in a box and the lid was closed, right? It's dark. You can't see anything. You can't see nothing. There's no light source, you know, and it's a great time to introspect and connect with things, but it also, you know, you're not going to see life outside of that box. And then when you open the box up, you see so much more, right? It's the same with our brains. When we box our thoughts in, right? When we box our minds in, that is all we see. And when we start to unpack those beliefs, right, and kind of break free from the beliefs that we have about things, we open ourselves up to a whole new perspective and a whole new thing. For instance, you know, when a lot of people said the shape of the world is something that's been debated about for ages. There are people who believe the world is flat. There are people who believe the world is round. You know, maybe both are right. It's just their perspective of things, right? For the longest time, people thought the world was flat, and if you were to tell them the world was round, they would have thought you were insane, right? And then astronauts and stuff get out into space, and we actually realize that the world is actually, it's not even perfectly round. It is not a sphere. Apparently it is more of an egg shape than anything, but we realize that it's not flat, right? So again, but if we didn't get ourselves into that different perspective outside of the world, we would have thought it'd still be continuing to think that we can float off the end of the earth, right? And really, in perspective, the earth is flat in the sense that you still have boundaries and limitations, right? There's still points to where you are no longer within the world, but I don't feel like it. So in that perspective, they're right. Like there is boundaries and limits to where the earth starts and where the earth ends, so to speak, but it's not flat as we would imagine it to be, right? But again, it took somebody with an open mind to come up with the theory of, well, the world's not flat. Or, you know, some of the greatest minds in the world have thought outside of the box. They've always been these outside of the box kind of thinkers, and a lot of people thought they were crazy. And that's the thing with money. When it comes to money and love, with the collective, you guys, we need to get outside of the box. We need to start breaking the traditional concept of love, the traditional concept of money, and getting out of these traditional structures in order to expand our ideas and our understandings of this. And in order to do that, we have to look at our own skeletons and our own beliefs. Why do we have to start questioning why we believe what we believe. Okay. So, the next question we're going to look at is how we can, during this time, we can create healthy detachments in our relationships. So Aquarius is very detached, a very detached sign. If anybody knows Aquarians, you know that they are quite capable of detaching from things. It's something that I envy of them sometimes. Because it's a difficult thing to do, but understand that everybody has that ability. We can all detach from certain things in our lives, okay? So for instance, I have Aquarius in my 5th house. So when it comes to my creativity, I can detach from that. When it comes, and I'm going to say this does not, this may sound bad, but even my children, okay, because the 5th house in astrology rules children, and that's where my Aquarius is sitting. So I can detach from my children, which can be a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, detach in a way where you're not present and you're not there, that can be a bad thing. Detach in a way where, you know, I can effectively parent because, you know, when my kids, and every parent does that, we learn to detach in a lot of ways because, you know, when our children go into temper tantrums or they, whatever the case may be, sometimes we need to detach from that emotional stuff, right? Sometimes we need to detach from things to be able to look at things objectively. And so everybody has that in a different part of their life. Everybody has that ability to detach from certain things in their lives, right? We all have it. So when Venus is moving through Aquarius, it is, you know, the ability to kind of detach from relationships. So, but this can be a difficult thing to do in a healthy way. So how do we create healthy detachments in our relationships? How can we create healthy detachments in our relationships? And detachment too, I feel like also breaks that codependency where, you know, there's a sense and a level of individualism that, you know, it makes us less codependent on people as well. So we are going to look at that. Yeah. Okay. So there's a couple ways that are coming through on how to create healthy detachments in relationships. The first card that came up was the Death card. So the big thing is not being afraid to leave relationships behind, okay? Not being afraid to let go of relationships. I feel like a lot of times people are scared to let relationships die, okay? We're scared to let relationships die. Nobody wants to be, as social creatures, as humans and social creatures, we don't want to be alone. We don't. And so we need that companionship with other people, typically. right? We need that companionship when it comes to connecting with other people. We don't necessarily want to be alone. So sometimes some people can have hard times letting relationships go, but that is one way of creating a healthy detachment, is understanding when a relationship is over and when it is time to let go. Okay, it is not a bad thing to let go. It can be toxic and extremely toxic to continue to hold on to a relationship that is no longer serving us anymore. It can be extremely toxic to stay in relationships that are not good for us, right? Sometimes you end up in relationships that are a little less than desirable. Some people end up in abusive relationships, or relationships where they're being taken advantage of, or relationships that just, whatever the case may be, just aren't healthy, right? And we have to be able to let those go. We also need to understand that some relationships are not forever. Okay? Some relationships come into our lives for a moment of time and they are gone, and that is okay. It is okay to let those go. If they die, they die. Okay? It is not... So creating healthy detachment begins with knowing when to let go. Okay? Begins with knowing when to let go. Another way is really having a strong sense of identity in yourself. Okay, so we have the Ace of Wands coming up. And I think a lot of the thing that happens too when we have attachment issues is we have codependency issues. We don't see ourselves as individual energies. We see ourselves as halves, okay? And a big thing that has played into this is the concept of twin flames, of soulmates, whatever you want to call them, where people believe that the other half of them exists out there. And then we feel like we are not enough, like we need somebody else to make us whole. In order to create healthy detachments in our relationships, that's another thing we need to understand. We need to understand that we are complete and whole within ourselves, that we are individual energies, and that when we come together with another energy, it is not necessarily the other half of ourselves. Even twin flames. I do have a YouTube video explaining this whole concept around twin flames. Twin flames are not a half of a soul. They are masculine energies and feminine energies. The masculine expression of your energy, the feminine expression of your energy coming together. But the masculine energy, the feminine energy in and of itself are two separate, completely separate energies. It's like yin and yang, right? The dark part of the yin... The yin part, the yin energy, yang energy, both of them are completely separate energies in and of themselves. But when they come together, they complement each other and they make something bigger, if that makes sense. And I think that's what another way that we can really create healthy detachments is learning to be comfortable and confident with ourselves. Right? Learning to be okay with being alone and being with ourselves and being in our own energy and being confident that we may not need somebody else's energy, right? Learning to be okay in our own energy. Learning that we don't necessarily need somebody else, okay? Again, sitting in this concept of I need somebody to come in to complete me, I need love to come in to complete me, I need a relationship to complete me, it's toxic, right? We are complete and whole energies in and of ourselves. And sometimes we can form those unhealthy attachments because we are not comfortable with ourselves, because we are not comfortable with being alone with our own energy. So we start becoming dependent on other people to make us happy, to, you know, make us feel loved, to make us feel whatever that case may be. Okay, so if you want to create a healthy detachment, you have to learn how to let things go, when to walk away, and you also have to learn who you are and learn to be comfortable in your own presence and learn to be comfortable in your own skin, your own energy, and be comfortable with you as an individual before getting into a relationship. Because when you're confident in who you are as an individual, then you come together not with a need for somebody else, right? It's not, oh my God, I need you. No, it's like, I want you. You make my life better, but you don't make my life better because I need you. You make my life better because you bring something to the table as well. You are you, I am me, and when we get together, we enhance each other. It's not a need, okay? It's not a codependency. And then the last one we're going to look at is how to love unconditionally or without barriers. So the two cards that came up for that, the Nine of Swords, sorry, and the Six of Wands reversed. What came through very, very, very clearly, we have to love people for the reality that they are. The Nine of Swords talks about the reality we might not want to face, okay? A lot of times when we fall in love with people, and I've had this happen numerous times where I have literally told people who say they love me, I have literally told them, you don't love me, you love the idea of me. You love the concept of me. You don't love me, because if I were to ask you really personal questions about me, you would not be able to answer them. So do you really love me as a person, who I am inside and out, good, bad, ugly, everything in between, or do you love the idea that you have built up in your head, the image that you have built up in your head, the concept that you have built up in your head of who I am, right? We have to get real. When we love somebody, we have to love them for everything. Everything. We have to see them for their flaws and all, okay? So the way that we can love people unconditionally is to look at them realistically, okay? Don't build up concepts in your head about them. Don't start falling into ideas and traps that way. I feel like a lot of people sometimes, like I said, romance, we can get caught up in the flood of it, right? We can get caught up in its water energy. And we can get caught up, part of water energy is illusions, disillusionment, fantasies, right? We can get caught up in those fantasies that we lose sense of reality. And the Nine of Swords is saying, in order to love unconditionally, you have to love the reality of the person. Even if it's a reality you don't want to look at, because we all have flaws. The Six of Wands is saying you have to love somebody flaws and all. Not just the good stuff about them, but also the bad stuff. Also the stuff that you may not like, okay? I'm also getting and hearing nobody is perfect. Okay, so when we love how to love unconditionally, understanding nobody's perfect. People are going to fuck up. They're going to make mistakes. Sometimes they're smaller mistakes. Sometimes they're fucking huge mistakes. But we're all human. We learn from those mistakes. We move on from those mistakes, hopefully. Now, if the person doesn't want to learn from those mistakes and they aren't willing to heal and, you know, do the work to make sure that that never happens again, that, you know, you might be better off letting that person go. Unconditionally does not mean necessarily put up with a whole bunch of bullshit, but it means understanding that we are human, understanding that everyone makes mistakes, and loving without condition, right? If you say, well, I'm only going to love you if, then you're putting a condition on that love. And I've been guilty of this too, okay? So, although I have never said, I will admit, I have never said to somebody, I will not love you anymore if you do this. I have said to people, I will not be in a relationship with you if you cheat on me, if you lie to me, if you, you know, that kind of thing. Like, I have a list of things that I will not tolerate, but at the same point in time, I understand people are human. And when people make mistakes, I'm like, well, I try, and we need to try to understand why this happens and what was going through their mind, what was going through, because sometimes people, again, we're not perfect, okay? But if we say, I only love you if, I will love you if, we are putting conditions on our love. So you have to stop using the conditions. You have to stop using the if word. Not that I think a lot of people use that anymore, but I feel like, you know, even people I've chosen to not be a part of my life, I still love them, and I always will. And my daughter, my one daughter said something to me that she was like, I've realized I can love people and not necessarily have to have them in my inner circle of people. That I can love people from afar. I don't necessarily have to connect with them personally, right? And that is part of unconditional love too. We're saying, you know, I love you and I will always love you, but I can't, you know, have you around me, or whatever the case may be. Now, again, understand that, you know, I would say try and work through things first. You know, people aren't perfect, especially if you're just thinking of separating because of something somebody did, right? Talk to them. Get to learn their perspective. Get to understand what was going through their mind, right? See things from their eyes and accept that, again, nobody's perfect. And then make your decision from there. But unconditional love means embodying everything about somebody. And in order to do that, you have to see the real them. Okay? You cannot you cannot unconditionally love somebody when you're loving a fantasy that has been built up about them, because that's not the real them. You're not seeing their flaws. You're not seeing their vulnerability. You're not seeing them at their lowest points or their highest points or anything in between, right? When you love someone, it's raw. It's raw. And you have to love them. The unconditional part means no matter what. Okay? No matter what. Now, again, whether or not you have to communicate with them, whether or not you choose to do that, whether or not you choose to allow them in your life, you don't have to have people in your life to love them. Okay, there are some people I have let go that I probably will not talk to for the rest of my life, but I still love them, right? I will still care about them, probably till the day I die. But as far as having them in my life, unless something changed in the toxicity, that was the reason why I got them out of my life in the first place, sorry, you know, unless that changed and I knew that they were no longer going to be a toxic influence in my life, I probably would not. That doesn't mean I'm not going to love them. And that's what we need to know. That's how we can love unconditionally. It's saying, you know, maybe you're not perfect. You have your flaws, and I see you for you. And I will love you for you no matter what. Whether we are in contact, whether we are not in contact, I will still care about you and I will still love you. So that is the end of this reading. Thank you guys so much for joining me in this reading. I hope that you found it beneficial and helpful and insightful. If you would like a personal reading, check out the link below this video. It'll be in the description for my Etsy. There are all sorts of readings over there. Sorry, went blank for a moment again. There's all sorts of readings over there. So there are tarot readings, astrology readings. There's also PDFs available for download over there as well. So check it out, and I will see you guys all in the next video. Bye guys.